Let's continue our discussion of plyometric exercise training program design variables by discussing volume. And as you can see here, volume of plyometric exercise training is typically quantified as reps times sets. So for lower body plyometric drills, plyometric volume is typically expressed as foot contacts per workout, or in the case of bounding or skipping plyometric drills, it would be distance covered. So for example here, for an athlete who is new to plyometric exercise training, a beginner, you may have them perform an exercise such as the double leg hop that you see a picture of here, where the athlete is bounding forward or hopping forward horizontally, covering a set distance. Let's say you have the athlete perform this double leg hop for 30 yards per rep, assuming that each bound or hop covers 2 yards in distance. This would result in approximately 15 contacts to cover this 30-yard distance. For an advanced athlete, you may have them perform the exact same exercise, the double leg hop, but for a longer distance, this time 100 yards per rep. And again, assuming the same distance is covered of 2 yards per hop or bound, that would result in a total of 50 contacts. For upper body drills, plyometric volume is typically expressed as a number of throws or catches per workout. So what we see here in this table is recommended lower body volumes and how it varies for athletes with different levels of experience. So these suggested volumes are for a beginner, again with no experience with plyometric exercise training, their beginning training volume, 80 to 100 contacts per session. And again, this is applying to lower body exercises. For intermediate, after they gain some experience or may have prior experience with plyometric exercise training, slightly higher volume, 100 to 120 contacts per session. And then for an advanced plyometric athlete that has considerable experience with plyometric training, a higher volume, 120 to 140 contacts per session. Again, these are just suggested volumes for various athletes based upon their plyometric exercise training experience. Now, let's turn our attention to our final variable, and that's frequency and recovery. Frequency is simply the number of plyometric training sessions per week and typically ranges from 1 to 3, depending on the sport, the athlete's experience with plyometric training, as well as the time of year or the season. So 48 to 72 hours between plyometric exercise training sessions is a typical recovery time guideline for prescribing plyometrics. Using these typical recovery times, athletes commonly perform 2 to 3 plyometric sessions per week. Now, because plyometric drills involve maximal efforts to improve muscular power, complete and adequate recovery is required. And by adequate recovery, I mean the time between reps, sets, as well as individual workouts. So for example, recovery for depth jumps, again dropping off a box and then exploding either forward or upward, may consist of 5 to 10 seconds of rest between repetitions and 2 to 3 minutes of rest between sets. The time between sets is determined by a proper work-to-rest ratio. For example, the work-to-rest ratio could be a 1 to 5 ratio or maybe upwards of a 1 to 10 ratio. And this is going to be specific to the volume and the type of drill being performed. It is recommended, though, that drills for a given body area should not be performed 2 days in succession. And finally, it's very common for athletes as well as other individuals to perform other forms or types of exercise in addition to plyometric exercise training. So we see here in this table just a sample schedule for integrating resistance training and plyometrics into the athlete's overall training schedule. So again, 4-day per week frequency, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And you see the trade-off here between resistance training and plyometric training intensity, as well as body region. So for example, on Monday, you may have the athlete perform high intensity upper body resistance exercise training, and then lower body low intensity plyometrics. And then if we trade off on Tuesday, performing low intensity lower body resistance training with higher intensity upper body plyometrics, and you see here as we go throughout the week, essentially just trading off intensity of resistance as well as plyometric training, and also alternating upper versus lower body exercises, trying not to overstress the same muscles within this athlete. So this is a question that I want you to consider and think about, and is directly related to the scientific manuscript associated with this module. And that is, should athletes perform aerobic exercise before performing plyometric exercise? Or is it more wise for them to perform plyometric exercise before aerobic exercise? So you see the scientific manuscript here called Time Course of Recovery of Vertical Jump Height and Heart Rate versus Running Speed After a 90-kilometer Foot Race. This is the scientific manuscript associated with the module here regarding plyometric exercise training. This is something I would like you to review ahead of class next week and be prepared to discuss that question: should athletes perform aerobic exercise before plyometric exercise, or vice versa?